So today is session number 7. We have one more class after today, so next Tuesday is our final class. Now, this hand and dexterity exercise series is recorded, and the recordings from the previous classes have already gone onto our YouTube channel. So if you are wanting to redo any of the class content, you're more than welcome to do so. You'll just have to go on to youtube.com, and in the search bar, you can just search Parkinson Society BC all in one word, and you'll see our profile come up. And within that profile, you'll see a playlist tab. If you click on that, and you will find the hand and dexterity playlist. And that playlist not only holds the videos from this series, but also the hand and dexterity exercise class from the previous years as well, which have similar exercises, but they're always a little bit different. So do check that out if you are hoping to do a little bit more work around your hand dexterity after the series finishes. Now, if you are new today, my name is Shelly, and I'm a physiotherapist here at the Parkinson Society. If you're not new, welcome back. So for today, we have a few different equipment we will need. The first thing you need is a tennis ball of some kind, or something around the size of a tennis ball. It doesn't actually have to be a tennis ball, but something around that size. Okay, that's the first thing you're going to need. You're going to need a belt, or if you don't have a belt, I'm using like a exercise band that I'm going to tie around my waist and hips when we get going. So you need a belt or something around the size of a belt, something you can tie around yourself, like a scarf even. And in addition to that, you need 4 things that you can loop like a ring, 4 different ring-shaped items, right, that you can loop around that belt. So it could be anything: hair ties, elastic bands, rolls of tape, rolls of toilet paper if you want. It could be anything, but it needs to be something that is in a ring shape. Okay, you need 4 ring-shaped items and your belt or exercise band if you don't have a belt. And then you need a cup with 10 macaroni pieces. So I've got 10 macaroni pieces, or you can use dried pasta, kidney beans, whatever you've got, but something around that size. Okay, you need 10 of them, and a cup. And lastly, you need a blank piece of paper for the handwriting portion of today's class. So in previous weeks, we were using sort of lined pieces of paper, but today we are going to use a blank piece of paper with no lines for the handwriting portion. So let me say that again from the beginning. Item number 1, you need a ball around the size of a tennis ball. That's the first thing you need, okay, a ball of some kind. The second piece of equipment is you need a belt or something that you can tie around your waist and hips like a belt. So I've got an exercise band, and you also need 4 ring-shaped items that you can loop around the belt or the exercise band, whatever you've got. So they could be anything, but they need to be 4 ring-shaped items. And you're going to need a cup with 10 macaroni pieces or kidney beans or dried pasta, whatever you've got, but 10 of them. And the last thing you need is a blank piece of paper. Okay, so those 4 things: a tennis ball, a belt, or an elastic you can tie around yourself, with 4 ring-shaped items, a cup with 10 macaroni pieces, and a blank piece of paper with no lines that we can use for the handwriting portion. Okay, I think most people have come back from what I can see. Okay, well, let's start with a warm-up today. And the warm-up, I shouldn't say warm-up today because we warm up every session, but we are going to make sure that when you're sitting nice and tall, and you're sitting at the front of your chair. So you'll remember in previous sessions, I talked about how when we're sitting, you want to make sure that your back is not directly onto the seat itself. So what I don't want is for us to do this. I don't want us to be slouching over onto one side. We want to sit up nice and tall and move to the front of the chair, have our feet flat on the floor so that we're in a nice ready position to move. Because if we're slouched over, it's actually going to be quite challenging for us to move our arms and legs and things like that, although we're not really moving our legs in the class. Okay, sitting up nice and tall, dropping your arms down by your side, we're going to start with our head movement. So we're going to drop our chin to our chest, and then we're going to look up at the ceiling. So it's like you're doing a big, exaggerated yes nod. And you can take your time on this. It doesn't have to be fast. We're dipping our chin down and then head back up. Good, nicely done. Try not to move your shoulders if you can. Keep your shoulders drop down towards the floor. Nice long neck. The movement is only coming from the head and not from the shoulders or the trunk. Let's bring our head back to the middle. This time, you're going to turn your nose over one shoulder and then the other way. So just like before, you're keeping your chest where it is. I don't want to see anybody do this with their breastbone. I want the breastbone to be facing forward, and you're keeping it that way. Shoulders down, and you're trying to lengthen your neck. So you're thinking nice long neck, shoulders reaching down, dropping down toward the floor if you can. That's it. Great. Head back to the middle again. This time we're going to do a circle. So we're going to bring our chin down and you're going to imagine the top of your head. So the crown of your head is going to be the target here. You're imagining there's a light shining out of the crown of your head and you're drawing a big circle on the ceiling with that light coming out of the crown of your head. Yes, very good. And you can take your time on this. You don't have to go fast. Take your time. Let's go the other way. So whichever direction you weren't doing, we're now going to do that direction. And you're really thinking about the crown of your head of being that target. So imagine that beam of light coming out of the top of your head. That's where you want the target to be, the crown of the head drawing a big circle on the ceiling. Great. And let's rest for a second. Sitting up nice and tall again, shoulders down away from the ears. You're now going to roll the shoulders back. So when you're doing this, try not to move our neck. We're going to keep our neck where it is. Our head and neck stay still. It's just the shoulders coming up to our ears and then dropping back. So you're drawing big circles with the pointy part of your shoulder. Trying to keep your head still if you can. We're trying not to move our trunk. We're just moving the shoulders if possible. Great. Nicely done. And then let's go the other way. Let's go forward this time. Same as before. Your head is not moving. We don't want the trunk to be moving. We want the trunk still. It's just the shoulders moving. Nicely done. And let's drop the shoulders for a second. We're going to bring our arms up to the shape of a letter W. So imagine I'm making the shape of the letter W with my arms. You're going to keep the shoulders down, your neck nice and long. I want you to pull the arms back behind you and then bring them forward again. So you're really thinking about the shoulder blades pulling together. So you're squeezing your shoulder blades together as you're doing this. And you're trying to keep the shape of the letter W the same. So I don't want to see this, right? I don't want to see the elbows come back. You want the entire shape of the letter W to go back. That's it. You've got it. So really thinking about the shoulder blades pulling in together, the entire shape of the letter W pulling back. The shape doesn't change. We don't want the elbows up. We want the entire length of that W to pull back, including your hands. You've got it. Nicely done. Try it again. Good. On the next one, you're going to pull back and hold it there. Keep your shoulder blades squeezing together. The letter W is behind your shoulders if possible. Keeping it behind your shoulders, you're going to slide up and down. So it's like you're dusting an imaginary wall behind you. So we're not going like this, right? We're not coming forward. The arms are back and you're keeping them there as you move them up and down. So imagine there's a wall behind you and you're trying to dust your arms. You're dusting the wall with the length of your arms. So I don't want to see the arms come forward. Keep them back behind your ears if you can. Nicely done. Let's do 3 more. Pull them back, pull them back. Imagine that wall behind you. You want the arms behind the ears. Good. And drop and relax for a moment. You might feel a bit of tightening through the top of the shoulders and across the back, which is good. We're going to hold out our arm now and we're going to go into our little sensory wake up. We're going to take our hand and we're going to gently pat down the length of our arm. You'll remember this if you've been here. And as you're doing this, don't forget about the tips of the fingers as well and the back of the hand. We don't want to just do the arm. We want to make sure we get the hand as well. A little bit of sensory stimulation here. And then we're going to flip the arm over the other way and do exactly the same thing, tapping down the length of the arm, making sure that you're also giving a little bit of tap to the palm and the fingertips and the thumb, covering as much surface area as you can. Great. And then now we're going to squeeze down the arm. You're trying to cover as much surface area as you can. And you're making sure you're also reaching the fingertips, the palm, the thumb. So don't forget to give light squeezes to those as well. Keep going. I'm just letting somebody in from the waiting room. Okay, let's switch sides. Other arm, same thing. You're going to pat down the length of your arm. Doesn't matter if your palm is up or down. We're going to do both sides anyway. You're patting down the length of the arm, making sure that you're not skipping the back of the hand or the palm or the thumbs or the fingertips, wherever you are. And then we're going to flip the arm over and do exactly the same thing. Gentle pats all the way down the length of the arm, remembering to also pay attention to the thumbs, the palms, the tips of the fingers, patting all the way up, covering as much surface area as you can. And then we're going to go into our gentle squeezes. Just like before, you're covering as much surface area as you can. All the way down the length of the arm. Don't forget about your palm, your thumbs, your fingertips. Nicely done, everybody. Okay, let's drop the arms for a second. We're going to clasp our hands together. The arms are relaxed by our side, so don't feel like you have to hold up your elbows. Keep them relaxed. We're going to clasp our hands together, and you're going to draw big figures of 8 with your fists. And as we're doing the figure of 8, try to keep the arms relaxed. What I don't want to see is this. We don't want the entire arm moving. We want the movement to be mostly isolated to our wrists. But of course, you'll notice as I'm doing this, my forearms will move anyway. We just don't want this kind of movement. Nice and gentle. Remember, if there's anything we're doing in the class that feels painful or uncomfortable in any way, you're welcome to modify or slow it down or change it, or even just sit out for some of them if you feel like it's sore. So it's up to you. You can modify however you like. Okay, we're going to hold out our fingers and we're going to do our last warm up, which is our finger wave. You might remember from previous weeks. So I'm starting with the left side here, and I'm kind of doing finger waves like that. You can either do them together, the fingers together, or you can kind of do them in succession where one hand goes first, followed by the other hand, but you're thinking about sort of like a wave quality. You're moving the fingers one at a time. if you're finding this really tough, see if you can go slower but bigger with the movement. So oftentimes in hand dexterity, when you're doing something really fast, especially if it's a repetitive type movement, you'll notice that the amplitude of the movement decreases the more you repeat it. So think things like brushing your teeth. Maybe it starts off really good, and then the more you brush, the smaller the movement becomes. Or stirring a pot, it starts off really well, and then it becomes a tiny movement. Or handwriting, even, where it starts off well and then it becomes a tiny squiggle. Go the other direction now. So anytime you have these sort of repetitive movements in your fine hand dexterity, you'll notice that the amplitude decreases, and that's because of bradykinesia, which is slowness in movement, but it's not actually just slow movement. It's also a decreased amplitude movement, so under-skilled movements. And so to bypass some of that, you're aiming for moving as big as you can. So we're not focusing on the speed of the movement, even though speed inherently comes when your movement becomes bigger and things like that. But you're trying to get your brain to focus on big movements instead to help bypass that. Okay, let's relax. So first thing we're going to do, we are going to grab our tennis ball. And it doesn't matter what hand you start with. We're going to do both, so you can choose which hand you're going to do. So I'm going to hold on to the tennis ball. So from the side, you can see I'm holding onto the ball with the tips of my fingers. So you can see there's a space between the ball and my palm. Okay, so that's what we want. We don't want this. We want this, the fingertips sort of holding the ball. And what we're going to do here is we're going to start by rolling the ball. So if I go sideways, I'm holding on by the fingertips and I'm rolling up the length of my thumb and then the length of my finger. So I'm doing this. Okay, so I'm rolling that ball like that. I'm rolling. Again, doesn't matter what hand you start with, you can choose. We're going to do both sides anyway. And you don't have to hold your arm up like what I'm doing here. I'm sort of holding it up so you can see, but you're more than welcome to drop your elbow down on a table or on like an armrest or your lap or whatever is easier, so you don't have to feel like you're holding up your arm the entire class, but you're really aiming for that roll. So it's like that. You're doing the rolling. Great. Okay, same hand. We're now going to rotate the ball. So just like before, a bit of gap between my palm and the ball, I'm going to rotate it in a clockwise direction. Try to keep that space between the ball and your palm. If you can, you're rolling in a clockwise direction. If you're finding this really tough, I had mentioned in previous classes, you can use a table. So same thing, you're doing the exact same movement, except you've got the table here to support the ball, which might make it a little bit easier, but you're still trying to rotate that ball. And you'll notice that when we're rotating the ball, there's an element of you isolating each of the finger movements. Can you see that? So it's not the whole arm moving, right? But it's the fingers sort of passing the ball along, if you will. So there's that element of isolating the finger movements. And it's important that we are able to isolate our finger movements, because in hand dexterity, it's not just about grip strength, even though grip strength is great and we of course need that in varying forms. But when we talk about hand dexterity, it's our ability to coordinate our fingers, our hand, and conform the shape of our hand to objects that we're picking up, right? Whatever object we're picking up and then manipulating, that's what hand dexterity is. So we need to have the ability to isolate some of these hand movements. Okay, let's go in the other direction. Same hand, we're just going to rotate now in counterclockwise. Or if you were already doing counterclockwise, go clockwise. You're basically doing the other direction of what you just did. And again, making sure that there's that little space between your fingers and palms. So it's really just your fingers kind of isolating that movement. Nicely done. You can use the table if you need. You might find that one direction feels more challenging than the other direction, and that's pretty normal. Okay, let's switch hands for a second. You can shake out your first hand. You can open and close the hand a few times. You can press on the little pad underneath your thumb if that helps. You're just going to relax a hand for a second. We're going to switch to the other side. So just like before, you're holding onto the ball with the tips of your fingers, and you can see there's a gap between the ball and my palm. And we're going to start with the rolling movement. So that. So you're kind of rolling the ball along the fingers and then rolling it along the thumbs. So like that, you're rolling. You'll likely find one hand to be easier than the other, and that's fine. It might be that on one hand you can do this relatively well, on the other hand you have to do the modification of, the rotation on the table. That's fine, absolutely fine. Meet yourself where you're at today. And again, oops, don't feel like you have to hold your arm up. You're welcome to drop your elbow onto like a table or something like that so you can rest your arm as well. Great job, everybody. Okay, let's practice rotation. So same as before, holding onto the ball with the tips of your fingers, a bit of space between your ball and your hand. And we're going to start by rotating it clockwise. Let's go clockwise first. We're going to do both directions anyway, but let's go clockwise. And just like before, feel free to put it on the table. If you need the table, that's absolutely fine. You're aiming for that clockwise direction. Trying to keep that little space between your palm and your fingers as well. Good, nicely done, everyone. Hopefully this exercise is starting to feel a little easier after doing it for a few weeks. Although it might still feel quite frustrating, and that's okay. Okay, let's go the other direction. So now I'm going counterclockwise. Or if you were already doing counterclockwise, just go in the other direction. You're thinking about that little space between the ball and the palm. So it's just the fingers sort of moving the ball along. You can use that table if you need. Nicely done, everybody. Okay, let's stop for a second. We're gonna practice our throw and catch. So you remember in previous weeks we held the ball in our hand and we were practicing this kind of trampoline quality of our hand. Do you remember that? So we're practicing this opening and expanding and this closing to catch. So opening to throw, closing to catch. What I don't want to see is the arm going, so we don't want to use the arm necessarily. You want the movement to come from the hand, right? So it's like that trampoline quality where you're opening the hand, you're extending it, and then you're closing it again to sort of catch. So you're going to try one hand first. Doesn't matter what hand you do because we're going to do both, but you're going to try one hand first. Think about that trampoline quality. Of course, your arm's going to move. It's not possible for you to keep your arm completely still, but what I don't want to see is this kind of throw. I don't want the entire arm to be the powerhouse behind the throw, if that makes sense. You want the movement to be coming from that hand. Think about that trampoline quality. Good. Nicely done, everybody. Let's try the same on the other hand. So we're going to try the exact same thing on the other hand. Think about that trampoline quality. I'm trying not to use my entire arm to chuck the ball up, but instead you're kind of thinking like a bounce, like a little bounce. You're extending the palm and the hand, and then you're sort of cupping the hand again to then catch the ball. So it's like that sort of opening and closing trampoline quality. A little bit of hand-eye coordination. Nicely done, everyone. Keep going. You're doing good. I know this one can be a little frustrating. It's okay if the ball doesn't entirely leave your hand. We're just trying to sort of get that bounce quality. Nicely done. Let's try now passing from hand to hand with that same movement. So it looks like this. I'm going bounce, catch, and you want it from both hands now. So it's not about us throwing the ball as high as we can, right? It's that same movement. You want it to be isolated from the hand opening and closing. Of course, your arm will move. It's impossible to do this with the arms completely rigid, but we want to focus most of that movement on the actual hand itself. So really think trampoline quality, that kind of bouncy quality. Nicely done, everybody. And as you're passing it, try not to do it this way because this is a little bit different. When we do it side to side, we're not necessarily getting that same bounce. So see if you can get your palm to be facing upwards as you're doing this. They might turn a little bit, but we don't want it like this because this is just passing the ball versus that kind of bouncing quality. Let's do a few more and then we'll leave this one because I'm sure we're all frustrated with this one by now. Okay, let's put that ball away. Next, we're going to take our cup and our 10 macaroni pieces or any dried pasta, beans, whatever you've got. And let me put the screen down. So I'm going to put my 10 macaroni pieces on the table like this and the empty cup right beside it. You might remember this exercise from previous weeks. We haven't done this in a little while, so we're revisiting it. So I got my 10 macaroni pieces in my cup. With one hand, doesn't matter what hand you do because we're going to do both. I'm going to use my index finger and my thumb to pick up each of these macaroni pieces and I'm going to drop it into the cup one at a time, just the index and your thumb for the first round. Try to keep the other fingers out of the way if possible. And you're picking up the macaroni pieces one at a time and dropping into the cup using only that index and your thumb. Try to lift the other fingers out the way if you can. If this exercise is not new to you and you've been here in the previous weeks when we did this, I want to invite you to try doing a little bit quicker. Once you've got all the macaroni pieces into the cup, you're still going to do the same hand, but now you're moving on to your middle finger and your thumb. And then you've guessed it, when you've done that round, you're going to do your ring finger and your thumb, then your little finger and your thumb. So you're basically picking up the 10 macaroni pieces with the same finger. And then once you've gotten all the pieces into the cup, you're going to now do the next finger. So right now I'm on my middle finger. After I do this round, I'm going to do my ring finger and then my little finger. And just like before, keep the other fingers away if you can. So now I'm on my ring finger. So you're doing the same hand the entire time. If this exercise is feeling a little easy, I invite you to go a little bit faster. But the main point of this is that dexterity. So if you're trying to go so fast that your fingers are now frozen, they're no longer moving very much, I want you to reset and go a little bit slower. Okay. I'm now on my little finger and my thumb. Taking out the pieces one at a time. Good job, everyone. Keep going one at a time. Okay, once you've done that on one hand and you've done the index, the middle, the ring, and the little finger, you're now going to switch to the other side and do the same thing. Start with a round of the index, then the middle, then the ring, then the little finger. Exactly the same thing. So on this side, I'm starting with my index. You're trying to lift the other fingers up if you can, or at least get them out of the way so we're not tempted to use multiple fingers to pick up the little macaroni pieces. Nicely done. And remember, you can take your time on this. You don't have to speed it up if you're already finding it challenging. If you find this to be a little bit easier, you're welcome to speed it up. We're aiming for accuracy here if possible. So now I'm doing my middle finger for this round. Try to keep the other fingers out of the way if you can. After I've done my middle finger, I'm doing the ring finger now to pick up the little pieces. And again, you're trying to keep the other fingers out the way if you can. And I'm on my last round, which is using my little finger to pick up the macaroni pieces. Nicely done, everyone. Once you've done all of those, you can give your hand a little bit of a rest for a second. And we're going to take just one macaroni piece. Now you can put the cup and the other pieces aside. We're just going to take one right now. And it doesn't matter what hand you do because we're going to do both. You'll remember this from previous weeks. I'm going to hold that macaroni piece between my index finger and my thumb. Can you see that? Index finger and thumb. Okay. And then I'm going to pass it to my middle finger and my thumb. And then my ring finger and my thumb. So you're passing it down the length of your hand, your little finger and your thumb, and then you're going to go all the way back again. Ring finger and thumb, middle finger and thumb, index finger and thumb, and then all the way back again. And you can take your time on this. If you find this to be easier and you've done this for several weeks already, you're welcome to try to speed it up. If you need to take a break and shake out your hand, you're more than welcome to do so. Okay, we're going to do the same on the other side. So we're going to try the other hand. You're going to start by holding the little macaroni piece in between your index and your thumb, and then you're going to pass it to your middle and your thumb, your ring and your thumb, and then your little finger. You might have to adjust a macaroni piece a little bit every time you move it so it doesn't fall off your finger, but you're trying to sort of pass it along if you can. This one might be feeling a little frustrating even after weeks of practicing. And you can imagine the bigger the item, the easier this is. The smaller the piece you're holding, the harder it's going to be. Good, nicely done, everybody. When you've done that, have a rest. You can shake out the hand a little bit. You can rub the little pad underneath at the base of your thumb if you would like. You can shake out your hand, whatever you need. We're going to take our cup and we're going to put it away. Okay. Next, we are going to take our belt or the elastic band, whatever you've got, and I'm going to tie it around my waist like this. Can you see? I've kind of tied it around. Oh, actually, I need to put the rings in first, don't I? Oh my goodness. Okay. So those ring-shaped items that you've got 4 of them, okay? They could be elastic bands, they could be rolls of tape, they could be rolls of toilet paper, it could be anything at all. So I'm looping them on. So you should have 4 of them. They could be any shape, and there could be any item. Doesn't matter about the weight either. You can use anything, but you want them to be kind of ring-shaped, otherwise this won't work. And you're looping them on. So can you see I've got 4 things looped on, okay? And then after you've got it looped on, you're gonna tie it just so it doesn't then fall off. Okay. So you can see I've got my makeshift belt tied on like that, and I've got the 4 rings. Can you see that? 4 ring-shaped items, okay? Just like before, what we're gonna do now is using one hand, well, you're gonna use both in a second, but you're gonna grab the ring-shaped item, the first one you've got, and you're gonna pull it all the way around to the other side. You're basically trying to get the rings all the way around you across to the other side, okay? Okay, I'll keep standing up so you can see. So I'm going to take the loops and I'm going to pull them around. This is a really great exercise for anyone who is actually trying to loop a belt onto your pants, or for anyone who is trying to get dressed in the morning if you're having trouble with things like pulling on your pants, because part of this circular motion is, if you imagine I'm trying to pull on my pants, to pull it up is one thing, but then you got to have your thumbs kind of come around the back of the waistband to then wrap it around and pull it all the way up. So this is what this exercise is for. You got the bands, you're looping them around, all the way around to the other side. So you can imagine if the items you've got are not hoop shaped, this won't really work. So you got to make sure they're sort of circular. Okay. And then wrapping all the way around to the other side. Once you've got all 4 across, you're going to do the same thing in the other direction. Exactly the same. You're pulling the band all the way across to the other side. The band goes all the way around to the other side. All the way around to the other side. Okay. All the way around to the other side. And just like before, if this exercise is starting to feel quite easy because you've done it for a few weeks now, you're more than welcome to speed it up and go for a bit of a speed round as you do this. But it's up to you. You don't have to go for speed. I mostly want you to actually complete the movement. We want sort of the quality over how fast you're doing it. But if you want that additional challenge, because this exercise is starting to feel easier, I do invite you to speed up the movement if you can. And also, the smaller the hoops, the more difficult it's going to be versus something that's quite big and easy to pull. So for example, on my loop, this roll of tape is going to be easier because it's very big compared to, say, a tiny elastic band. So that's another element of challenge if you wanted to make this exercise harder, is either make it faster as you're doing this, or making those loops a little smaller, the hoops that you've got going around. Nicely done. And you don't have to stand up for this. You can sit down. I'm standing up here so you can actually see, because when I'm sitting down, the table will cover the loops going around. Thanks. Do one more round wherever you are. Nicely done, everyone. Okay, when you've done your last round, you can untie that belt or the band, whatever you're using, and you can take those 4 loops off of it. And then we can put that aside. Okay, how's everyone doing? Hopefully good. We've got about 15 minutes left. So before we get into our handwriting component, we're going to break it up a little bit and do a little bit of bigger movements with our hands for a moment. So sitting in our chair, we're still sitting nice and tall at the front of our chair, right? So we're not slouching back, we're leaning to the side, we're sitting nice and tall. I'm going to get you to make fists with your hands. So you're really going to clamp your hands together. Imagine you're squeezing something in your hand and you don't want to let it go. You're going to pull your arms in like so. Keep squeezing your fists. And what you're going to do here is I want you to imagine that there's something really heavy in front of you, like a gigantic boulder, okay? A really heavy, gigantic boulder. And you're going to muster up as much power as you can to try to push this imaginary boulder across the room like this. You're really going to push. And notice here, when I'm pushing, I want my finger splayed. So see if you can open your fingers wider, wider, wider. Really stretch the skin across your palm. More. Yes, more. More. Splay the hands, splay the hands. Reach, 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 reach. Now you're going to grab and pull and really squeeze. So I want you to imagine whatever item that you're thinking about in your head, it's something really, really heavy. And you're going to push it and pull it across the room. So try it again. Big push. Spread the fingers. More, more, more. Yes, well done. Keep going. Splay the hands more, more, more. Reach, reach, reach. Yes, you've got it. Grab and pull and squeeze, 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 squeeze. Try it again. Here we go. Spread the hands out more. That's it. Splay the hands. Reach, reach, reach. Fingers wide, 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 wide. Grab and pull and squeeze, 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 squeeze. We're going to do 2 more. Here we go. Big push. Spread the fingers wide, even wider, wider, wider. Yes, you've got it. Reach, reach, reach. Grab and pull and squeeze. You've got it. Last one. Here we go. Big push. Spread the fingers out wider, wider, wider. Yes, you've got it. Reach, reach, reach. Grab and pull and squeeze. Okay, rest for a second. Shake out the hand. We're going to do that again, but shake out the hand for a second. So we really got the exaggeration of that of the fingers of the hand, and I really want you to think about the power that you put behind it as well. You want the movement to be to have sort of like a sharp quality, if you will, or like a staccato quality, if you know music terms, like really abrupt and crisp. So we're going to try it again. We're going to do another 5. You ready? So make fists with your hands and really squeeze, 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 squeeze. Okay, think about the movement as sharp as you can. How sharp can you make it? Ready? Here we go. Push. Spread the hands out wide, wide, wide. Yes, wider, wider. Yes, you've got it. Reach, 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 reach. Now grab and pull sharp. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Yes, nicely done. Here's number 2. You ready? Here we go. Sharp. Spread the fingers out wide, 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 reach, 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 wider, wider. Yes, you've got it. Really splay the hand. Now grab and pull and squeeze, 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 squeeze. Well done. You've got it. We got 3 more. Here we go. Push. As sharp as you can. Yes. Spread the fingers out wide, 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 wide. Reach, 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 reach. Grab and pull and squeeze, 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 squeeze. You've got it. 2 more. Ready? As sharp as you can. Here we go. Push. Spread the fingers out wide, 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 like you're reaching your fingertips to the screen. You've got it. Grab and pull and squeeze, squeeze, squeeze as sharp as you can. This is our very last one. Make it as powerful as you can. Ready? Here we go. Push. Spread the fingers wide, wide. Yes, very nice. Grab and pull sharp. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And rest. Whew, well done, everyone. Shake it out, shake it out. Good job. Okay, we are now going to grab our blank piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, of course. So in previous weeks, when we did handwriting, we had line pieces of paper, and the main target, if you will, that we were going for was trying to make the amplitude of the writing as big as we can. Do you remember that? So last time we had line pieces of paper, and as we wrote, we were trying to use the lines, and we were trying to touch the top and bottom margin of the lines as we wrote. So you'll remember that from last time. This time, you're still thinking about the amplitude, except now we have no lines on the sheet. So, oh, I just realized the table is also white. Hang on a second. Maybe I'll see. I do it like that. You can see it a little bit better. I've just put it on a piece of, put it on a little book so you can see it kind of come off the page. So what I'm going to start with today is like what we did last time. I'm going to start with the pattern, okay? So if you watch me for a second, I'm going to do this kind of up and down sharp pattern across the page. And the point of this, the focus of this, if you will, is trying to make that the amplitude of these ridges as big as I can as I go across the page. And I'm going to try not to let my tip of my pen come off the paper. So my hand is sort of gliding across the page, if you will. And you're going to try to keep the size of these little peaks as symmetrical as you can. Doesn't matter if they're not actually, but the point here is as we go across the page, the amplitude should look relatively similar. What I don't want is this, where we start really big and then it becomes like this tiny. So I don't want this. I don't want it to be really big, 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 and then it becomes this tiny, tiny, tiny squiggle. So I want it to be this same amplitude the entire way across. So it's harder now because we're using a blank piece of paper versus the lined piece of paper we used in the previous weeks, where we actually had some margins, visual margins to sort of target, whereas now on a blank piece of paper you don't, which is going to be much more difficult. So I really want you to think about the amplitude. You want to make the amplitude of the writing, the drawing, as big as you can. It won't be the same size all the way across, perhaps, but again, you want to avoid that sort of big, 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 and then this small, 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 small. You want to avoid that. You want it to be around the same size. You want it to be around the same size as you go along. So you're going to keep doing this until you're maybe about a third of the page down, or maybe a quarter of the page down. Whoops, and hopefully you didn't lift up your pen halfway like I just did. Once you've gone maybe a third of the way down the page, or a quarter, we're going to now do our loops. So you'll remember our loops from last time. Looks like this. I'm looping, do circular movements instead of the angular writing, the angular pattern we did a second ago. I'm now doing these big loops all the way across the page. And just like before, I'm going to try not to let the pen come off the tip of the page. And I want to avoid I want to avoid this, where I start the loops really big and then they become small, 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 small. So I want to avoid this kind of big, 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 small, 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 small. I want it to stay around the same amplitude the entire way across if I can. Of course, you won't exactly get the same amplitude all the way across, but the point here is I want to avoid this humongous loop and then followed by these tiny, tiny, tiny loops. I don't want the amplitudes to get smaller and smaller across the page. I want them to be relatively uniform the entire way across. And if possible, see if you can keep your tip of the pen on the page the entire way. So you're going to kind of have to slide your hand across the page as you're doing this. Nicely done. Sometimes it helps if you stop after each line to just have a look at what you've done in the previous line to see if there needs to be any adjustment to the amplitude, because remember, we're trying to avoid this change in amplitude where you start off with the movements really big and then they become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So we want to avoid this pattern. We want the amplitude to be relatively the same the entire way across. And using the blank piece of paper that we've got today is much harder than the lined pieces of paper we've done in previous weeks where you had that visual target. So if you're finding this impossible to do, I promise you're not the only one in the room, and you can try going back to the lined piece of paper if you prefer to just help you get that visual target. Once you've done another quarter of the page or another third of the page of these sort of loops, I want you to now practice your letters. So what we're going to do with the letters is the same as last time, where we're starting. So we're going to go down the alphabet just like before. We're going to start with capital A followed by a lowercase a, and then a uppercase B followed by a lowercase b, uppercase C, lowercase c, all the way down the alphabet. And your goal here, because you don't have visual lines now, your goal here is trying to make the letters around the same size. Remember, you're aiming for that amplitude again. What I don't want the pattern where we're doing these really big letters and then they become smaller and smaller and smaller. So I don't want this where it starts really big and then it goes small, 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 small. You want the amplitude to be relatively uniform the entire way across. So even though we're doing both uppercase and lowercase, you want the movement to be still, the writing to still be quite big. Aiming for amplitude here. And just like before, if you want an additional bit of challenge, you can go a little bit quicker once it gets easier, but I want the focus to be on that uniform amplitude across the page. Aiming for the uniform amplitude across the page. Nicely done, everyone. And once you've done the alphabet, you're going to do it again from the beginning. We're just going to do the entire alphabet over and over again using uppercase and lowercase lettering, trying to have the amplitude be relatively uniform. So it might be that after each line, you need to stop for a moment and just look at what you've done to see if you need to adjust the amplitude. Trying to make the letters uniform in size if possible. And again, once this gets easier, you are more than welcome to speed up the movement, but not at the cost of the actual writing. So if you're speeding it up to the point where your letters are now little squiggles, then I would rather you slow it down and aim for the amplitude. Because remember, with handwriting, part of the issue is bradykinesia. where not only do movements tend to be slower, but you'll notice that the quicker you try to do something, the smaller the amplitude becomes. So it's almost like you need to focus on the amplitude instead of the speed, even though speed will inherently come. But you're trying to work on focusing on the amplitude. Nicely done, everyone. If handwriting is really difficult for you on a daily basis, I would definitely recommend always writing using a lined piece of paper so that you have the visual targets to keep the amplitude nice and large as you're writing, just like in previous weeks. Whereas having no lines is much harder because you don't have that visual target as you go along. But of course, you can also practice and work your way up to it. But if handwriting is just really tough for you, using lined pieces of paper might just be a better option. So you can see here, I filled out my page, but you can see here in my page, the lines that I've drawn and the letters are all relatively uniform in amplitude. Of course, they're not going to be exactly the same, but they're pretty uniform. And what I have not done is this, where I have the letters be really big and then they get smaller and smaller and smaller. So I haven't done this where it starts off really big and then it goes small, 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 and then it gets more squiggly and squigglier as I go along. So that's what I don't want. I want to keep the amplitude relatively the same the entire time. So we can put our sheets aside once you've got that filled out. And let's talk about what we need next time for our final class. So for the final class, it's going to be a little bit of a review of the main movements that we've been working on for the last 2 months together. So you're going to need a blank piece of paper again. So like we practiced on the blank piece of paper, you're going to need a blank piece of paper again for handwriting with no lines. Unless you're finding the blank piece of paper really, really challenging and you prefer to have lines, that's fine. But we're going to try to use a blank piece of paper with no lines. That's the first thing you need. You're going to need your tennis ball again, or something around the size of the tennis ball. So keep that aside. We're going to need it again for next time. You're going to need your cup with your 10 macaroni pieces again, or kidney beans, pasta, whatever you've got. The smaller the item, the more challenging it's going to be, okay? And the last thing you need is a tea towel. So a little towel from your kitchen would work. Nothing too thick. So don't use a hand towel from the bathroom because that's too thick. You want it to be like a tea towel, like a kitchen towel, something that's a little thinner. So again, 4 items you need. The first one is a blank piece of paper. Okay, blank piece of paper with no lines if possible. You're going to need your tennis ball, your cup with the 10 macaroni pieces or pasta or beans, whatever you're using. The smaller the item, the more challenging it's going to be, just like today. And then the last thing is a tea towel from your kitchen. And that's it, just those 4 things. Blank piece of paper, tennis ball, a cup with 10 macaroni pieces or whatever you got, and then a tea towel. And that's it.